I first want to say this report was drafted by Gisela Wurm from Equality, and I was rapporteur for opinion on behalf of Migration Committee, just to make it clear. Women and girls are particularly vulnerable when they are fleeing from conflict zones. First of all, sometimes they have to flee because of gender-based violence, which they encounter at home. And then by having to make the journey to safer places, often they have to, or they are victims of gender-based violence. There are prostitution networks. Sometimes they use sex for protection. Can you imagine that? So these women and girls are particularly vulnerable when they arrive then in reception places. Sometimes they're not well looked after. Governments don't really pay any attention to the specific needs that women and girls face, like their reproductive and sexual rights and health, which they need. They get raped, they get pregnant. They really need specific protection for that. So it's good that this report really draws the attention to the particularly vulnerable situation of women and girls. Absolutely. I think member states should do much more, and indeed they are concentrating, as you rightfully say, on numbers, and they try to limit these numbers, of course, but behind all these numbers there is human beings, and particular women and girls, and they have children, they are partners, and so on. So the report of Gisela Wurm tries to give testimonies of cases that are really terrible, and they could happen to any of us or family members, and it is important to understand the particular needs of these women and girls, and not to treat migrants and refugees just as statistics which have to go down. Let's face it. Yeah. Yes, but authorities, like in refugee camps, in facilities, usually they say gender-based violence is not really something we are concerned about, because it's often violence within the community itself, you know. So they say we want to give them safety and food and some basic health care, but women need specific health care. They need, again, sexual reproductive health care, and authorities usually don't really pay attention to these needs, and that really needs to change. Exactly. The Istanbul Convention, it's good that you mention it, is key to tackling this problem, and so many member states still did not ratify the Istanbul Convention, and this is one of the pleas of the report by Ms. Wurm, that indeed the Istanbul Convention really needs to be ratified by member states, because in this way we can protect all our women and girls, also the ones that come to us to get basic human rights because they're refugees and they're fleeing conflict zones. Well, it's an interesting question, because the media can play different roles, and some media indeed they give pictures like as if refugees are cockroaches. It's a terrible comparison. But other media do other things. I can tell you some media indeed try to make understand that refugees are human beings in need of protection. So they have a responsibility there. They can worsen the situation, or they can really do for the good. So I would call upon the media, of course, just as on the politicians and the member states at large, to do a good job and to try to help these people rather than to worsen the situation. Yes. Now I will talk from the Migration Committee, because one of the amendments that we have added was exactly pleading for legal pathways for migration, specifically for women which are victims of gender-based violence, or who are really afraid of this violence. They really need specific legal pathways and protection if they need the asylum, to seek asylum somewhere. And then, of course, you could bypass the whole trafficking thing. It's not sufficient to attack the traffickers directly without giving other options for migrants to come legally to countries that could offer protection for them.